The desert wind didn't just blow that night, it screamed. Captain Maya Collins stayed low behind the twisted frame of the Humvee, her gloved hands pressing hard against the wounded soldier's chest. The heat of the burning convoy mixed with the cold reality sinking into her bones. He wasn't responding anymore. "Come on, stay with me," she whispered again, tighter this time as if force could bring him back. But his eyes had already gone distant, empty. A distant explosion echoed across the dunes, secondary fuel tanks igniting from another destroyed vehicle. The shockwave rolled through the sand like thunder. Maya didn't flinch. She couldn't afford to. Her radio cracked once more, weak and broken. "Mayday, anyone respond." Then static swallowed it completely. She slammed the device once against her palm, useless. For a brief second she looked up. The convoy was gone. Not destroyed in pieces, but erased from structure. Vehicles scattered like broken toys across the desert floor. Firelight painted everything in orange and black. And above it all, silence from her unit. That silence was worse than gunfire. Because silence meant one thing. No one was coming. A gust of wind carried ash across her face. She wiped it away slowly, her mind racing through training protocols, emergency procedures, extraction fallback routes. Nothing applied here. This wasn't a mission gone wrong. This was something designed to go wrong. A trap. Then she heard it. Not loud, not obvious. A metallic click somewhere beyond the smoke. Maya froze instantly. Her instincts didn't question it, they obeyed it. Slowly, she tilted her head just enough to see past the wreckage. Between two burning vehicles, shadows moved. Not random survivors. Not panicked soldiers. Coordinated movement. 3 figures. Then 5. Then more emerging from the dark ridge beyond the convoy. Enemy forces. But not rushing. Not chaotic. They were advancing slowly, carefully, as if they already knew the battlefield layout. As if they had studied it before the explosion ever happened. Maya's grip tightened on her rifle. Her finger hovered near the trigger, but didn't press. Not yet. One wrong shot would expose her position. Her breathing slowed. Inhale, hold, exhale. She had learned this in training, but now it felt different, real, heavy. Every breath felt like it could betray her location. One of the enemy soldiers raised a hand. The others stopped instantly. He pointed toward the wreckage where she was hiding. Maya didn't move. Didn't blink. Impossible. There was no way he could see her through the smoke and fire. But then, a laser sight flickered briefly across the metal beside her head. Her blood ran cold. They weren't guessing. They had tracking. Thermal sweep the area. A voice called out in broken English from somewhere behind them. That confirmed it. They weren't just attackers. They were equipped, organized, military-grade coordination. This wasn't a rogue group. This was something far more dangerous. A new wave of fear hit, but she crushed it immediately. Fear slows you down. And slowing down meant dying. She slowly shifted her weight, staying low, moving inch by inch behind the wreckage. Every sound around her felt amplified, the crackling fire, the shifting sand, even her own heartbeat. Too loud. Too fast. Then, a faint buzzing sound rose in the distance. Her eyes snapped upward. Drone. Small, fast, deadly silent except for that faint mechanical hum. It drifted above the convoy like a predator scanning prey. Maya immediately pressed herself flat against the ground, using the twisted metal as cover. The drone passed once. Twice. Then paused. Hovering. Scanning. A red light blinked underneath it. Thermal imaging. Her mind raced. If it locked onto heat signatures, the wounded soldier beside her, the burning vehicles, her breathing, everything was a signal. The drone rotated slightly, locked downward. Maya's muscles tightened. She had seconds, not minutes. Seconds. Without thinking, she grabbed a burning metal panel beside her and flipped it over, creating a sudden burst of smoke and heat distortion. The drone shifted instantly, recalibrating. She used that moment. She moved. Vast, low, silent, across open sand. Every step felt like stepping on glass. Behind her, gunfire erupted. Not random. Directed. They had spotted movement. Contact south side, move in. Maya didn't look back. She couldn't. Looking back meant hesitation. And hesitation meant capture. She pushed forward toward a collapsed ridgeline, using uneven terrain as cover. Her lungs burned. Her legs screamed for rest. But she didn't stop. Not even when she reached the ridge and nearly collapsed behind it. She forced herself upright again. Scan. Assess. Survive. From this new angle, she could see the battlefield more clearly. What she saw made her stomach tighten. This wasn't just an ambush site. It was a controlled kill zone. Exit routes were blocked. Convoy was centered perfectly. Even the explosion points seemed strategically placed, like a net tightening around prey. They planned this, she whispered. Not just the attack. Everything. A faint memory flashed in her mind. Mission briefing. Intelligence officer saying the area was low resistance. A lie. A setup. Maya clenched her jaw. Someone fed us into this. Another explosion echoed in the distance, followed by shouting. The enemy was spreading out now, forming search patterns. Systematic. Predictable. Hunting. She checked her rifle again. Half magazine left. One sidearm. No backup. But she wasn't helpless. Not yet. Her eyes scanned the terrain. Rocks, shadows, elevation points. Survival wasn't about strength here. It was about movement. She adjusted her grip. Then, a voice cut through the radio static she thought was dead. If any U.S. personnel are alive, respond immediately. Maya froze. She looked down at her broken radio. It flickered again. Weak, but alive. Her heartbeat spiked. Extraction window opening in T-. The voice continued, breaking in and out. Hope. Real hope. But faint. Very faint. She whispered into the mic, voice barely audible. This is Captain Collins, I'm still alive. A pause. Static. Then, we read you, hold position. Extraction possible, but hostile presence confirmed heavy. Her eyes narrowed. Heavy presence meant one thing. They weren't just nearby. They were surrounding. She looked out across the desert again. Shapes moving. Closing in. Every direction. And for the first time since the ambush began, Maya realized something terrifying. She wasn't escaping through this battlefield. She had to survive inside it first. The radio crackled one last time. Stand by, extraction assets en route. Then silence. Again. But this time, Maya didn't feel alone. She felt hunted. And ready. The radio went silent again. That silence hit harder than gunfire. Captain Maya Collins stayed still for exactly 3 seconds, just long enough to confirm the signal wasn't coming back immediately. Then she moved. No hesitation, no wasted motion. Extraction was en route, But in a battlefield like this, that phrase didn't mean safety. It meant delay. And delay meant enemies had time to close in. She slid down the far side of the ridge, boots grinding into loose sand. The moment her feet hit level ground, she crouched low and scanned the horizon again. The desert had changed. What looked empty a minute ago now felt occupied. Not visually obvious, not loud. Just presence. Like the land itself was being watched. A distant burst of gunfire echoed near the convoy site behind her. That meant the enemy had fully engaged search mode. They weren't cleaning up anymore. They were hunting. Maya checked her rifle again. Half magazine, one sidearm, one combat knife. That was it. Standard survival odds in hostile territory, almost zero. But training didn't care about odds. It cared about decisions. She pulled a small survival marker from her vest and pressed it into the sand, marking her direction of movement. If rescue came, they needed a trail. If she didn't survive, at least there would be something to follow. Then she moved. Fast but controlled. She kept low, using broken terrain and scattered wreckage as cover. Every few seconds, she stopped, listened, scanned. That's when she heard it again. The drone. Closer this time. A faint mechanical hum above the wind. Her eyes lifted instantly. There it was, barely visible against the dark sky. Small, fast-moving, sweeping in slow arcs. Persistent bastards, she muttered under her breath. This wasn't random surveillance. It was tracking her specifically. Which meant one thing, they knew she was alive. She dropped instantly behind a half-buried supply crate as the drone passed overhead. A red scanning light flickered across the sand nearby, slowly moving closer. Her heartbeat stayed steady. That was the only thing keeping her alive now, control. The drone paused. Hovered. Directly above her position. For a moment, everything went still. Even the wind felt quieter. Maya slowly reached for a metal plate beside her, a fragment from the destroyed convoy gear. She waited, until the drone's angle shifted slightly. Then, she threw it. Not far, not high. Just enough to land behind a ridge of rocks. The sound echoed. Metal hitting stone. The drone immediately pivoted toward it. Misdirection worked for exactly one chance. Maya used it. She sprinted. Low, fast, silent. Sand burned under her boots as she crossed open terrain. Every step felt exposed, like the desert itself was judging her movement. Behind her. Gunfire. Movement spotted South Ridge. They saw her. Or at least thought they did. She didn't slow down. Couldn't slow down. A single burst of bullets kicked up sand just inches from her left side. She veered sharply, rolling behind a collapsed metal beam half buried in the dunes. Impact shook her shoulder. She stayed down. Counted her breath. 1, 2, 3. Then moved again. But now the desert wasn't empty anymore. Shapes began appearing in the distance, slow, methodical movement, not rushing, not chaotic. They were spreading out in a wide formation. Encirclement. Maya realized it immediately. They were cutting her off, forcing her toward a center zone. A kill pocket. Smart, she whispered bitterly. Too smart for a random militia. This was trained, tactical behavior. She checked her surroundings again. Left, open sand. Right, scattered wreckage. Forward, rising dunes. Behind, closing enemy line. No clean escape route. That meant only one thing. She had to break pattern. She shifted direction sharply, moving diagonally instead of straight. Most pursuit formations expected linear movement under pressure. Not hers. She cut through a narrow gap between debris fields, using broken vehicle parts as cover. The terrain here was more chaotic, harder for coordinated movement, but also harder for her. Her boots slipped slightly on uneven ground, and she caught herself just before falling. Pain shot through her wrist. No time to check injuries. Keep moving. Always moving. Then, a voice cracked through the open air. Not radio. Real. Close. Stop wasting ammo, she's alone. Maya froze behind a burned-out engine block. 2 enemy soldiers passed only meters away. She held her breath. They didn't look in her direction. Not yet. One of them adjusted his weapon. She can't go far, the desert does the rest. The other laughed. She's already dead, just delayed. Maya's grip tightened on her rifle. Every muscle in her body wanted to act. But she didn't. Not yet. Patience was survival. They moved past her position, heading toward the ridge she had just crossed. She waited until their footsteps faded, then moved again. The desert felt like it was shrinking. Every direction now carried signs of pursuit, flashlights in the distance, movement patterns tightening, drone returning in wider circles. They were coordinating now, closing the net. Maya's breathing stayed controlled, but her body was starting to feel the strain. Dehydration was creeping in. Her lips were dry, her vision slightly sharper at the edges. But she pushed it back. Focus on movement. Focus on terrain. She reached a narrow canyon-like formation between rocks, narrow enough to restrict movement, perfect for temporary cover. She slipped inside. The moment she entered, she dropped to one knee and checked her gear again. That's when she saw it. Footprints. Fresh. Inside the canyon. Her eyes narrowed. Impossible. She slowly turned her head. Behind her, a shadow moved. Maya didn't think. She reacted. She swung her rifle upward, but stopped. It wasn't an enemy. It was a wounded civilian worker, probably caught in the initial blast, barely conscious, bleeding from his arm. He raised his hands weakly. Don't shoot. Maya lowered her weapon instantly. But the moment had already changed everything. Because now, she wasn't alone in hiding anymore. And that meant risk. More risk. The man tried to speak again, but stopped, coughing. They're everywhere. Maya looked toward the canyon entrance. Distant footsteps echoed. Closer now. Much closer. She had a decision to make in seconds. Stay hidden and risk both of them being found. Or move immediately and increase survival chances. The footsteps grew louder. She grabbed the man's arm. We move now. He nodded weakly. And as they stepped deeper into the canyon, a red laser dot appeared on the rock beside her head. Outside, somewhere above, the drone had found them again. And this time, it wasn't alone. The red laser dot didn't move. It stayed fixed on the canyon wall, steady, patient, like it already knew where Maya Collins would step next. For a split second, everything in her mind went quiet. Not calm. Focused. Deadly focused. The wounded civilian beside her was breathing hard, barely standing. Every second they stayed in the canyon increased the chance of detection. The narrow rock walls that once felt like shelter now felt like a trap narrowing around them. Above them, the drone's faint hum grew louder. Multiple angles now. Not one. More than one unit. They're coordinating air and ground, Maya whispered under her breath. That meant something worse than pursuit. It meant containment. She slowly pulled the man deeper into the canyon shadow, pressing both of them against the rock wall where the darkness was thickest. Her rifle stayed raised, but her finger didn't touch the trigger yet. Waiting. Listening. The footsteps outside multiplied. Crunching sand, measured spacing, tactical formation. "Check the canyon," a voice ordered from above. Maya's jaw tightened. They were sealing exits. One by one. The wounded man grabbed her sleeve slightly, panic rising in his eyes. "They're going to find us." Maya didn't look at him. "Not if you stay quiet," she whispered. But even as she said it, she knew the truth. Silence wouldn't save them now. A shadow passed across the canyon opening. Then another. Flashlights swept the edges of rock formations, cutting thin beams through the darkness. The red laser returned, scanning lower this time. Closer. Maya shifted her grip on the rifle slowly, silently adjusting her position so she was between the man and the entrance. If this went wrong, she would be the first target. That was the only option she accepted. A voice echoed from outside. Thermal readings confirmed 2 signatures inside. Her blood ran cold. Thermal detection. They weren't guessing anymore. The drone must have marked them. The wounded man shook his head slightly, panic overtaking him. "No, no, no." Maya pressed a hand over his mouth immediately. "Quiet." Too late. A faint rustle. Outside. Movement stopped. Someone had heard him. Contact confirmed, canyon entry. Maya exhaled slowly. This was it. No more hiding. No more waiting. She turned slightly toward the man. "If I move, stay behind me," she whispered. "Don't run, don't scream." He nodded quickly. Then, the first enemy stepped into the canyon entrance. Slow. Careful. Weapon raised. Maya didn't hesitate. She fired. One shot. Clean. Precise. The soldier dropped instantly before he could even react. Silence shattered. Contact inside the canyon. Gunfire exploded. Bullets tore into rock, sparks flashing against stone. Maya pulled the wounded man down as rounds slammed into the wall above them. "Move," she shouted. They ran. No plan, no formation, just instinct and survival. The canyon turned into chaos, echoes of gunfire bouncing off rock walls, making it impossible to locate exact positions. Maya used that confusion instantly. She fired again from cover, 2 more shots. 2 silhouettes dropped. But more were coming. Always more. "Flank left," someone shouted outside. They were adapting fast. Too fast. Maya pushed forward through the canyon, dragging the man when he slowed. The terrain narrowed, forcing them into a tighter passage. Bad. Very bad. No exit in sight. Just rock. Rock and dead ends. The wounded man stumbled. "We're trapped." Maya didn't answer. She was scanning every inch of the canyon walls now, looking for anything, any crack, any elevation shift, anything that could be used. Then she saw it. A narrow vertical gap in the rock formation ahead. Barely visible. But real. A climb route. Dangerous, tight, exhausting. But it led upward. "Up there," she said immediately. The man looked up. "No way, I can't." "You don't have to think," she cut him off. "Just climb." Behind them. Gunfire again. Closer. Maya turned, fired once more. Another enemy down. But she was running out of time. She shoved the man toward the rock gap. "Go." He started climbing weakly, slipping twice before catching a ledge. Maya covered him, firing controlled bursts down the canyon entrance. Her magazine was draining fast. Each trigger pull felt heavier now. Click. Half empty. Then, a grenade rolled into the canyon floor. Maya's eyes widened instantly. DOWN. She grabbed the man and pushed him behind a rock outcropping. Boom! The explosion ripped through the canyon, dust and rock filling the air like a storm. Her ears rang. Vision blurred for a second. Then, silence again. But not peace. Smoke filled the space. And through it, more footsteps. They were still coming. Maya coughed once, shaking dust from her gear. Her body was starting to feel the strain now. Dehydration, exhaustion, constant movement. But she pushed it down. No time for weakness. She looked up. The man was halfway up the rock gap, struggling. "Don't stop," she shouted. Another shadow appeared at the canyon entrance. Closer. Maya raised her rifle. Click. Empty. Her eyes flicked down instantly. No time to reload. The enemy stepped forward. And stopped. Because behind Maya, a faint mechanical sound returned. The drone. But this time it wasn't alone. Multiple hums echoed in the sky. She slowly looked upward through the canyon opening. 3 drones. Scanning. Locking. Marking positions. The enemy wasn't just on the ground anymore. They had full aerial coverage. Maya's expression hardened. "This is a kill box," she whispered. And then, the radio in her vest crackled again. "Weak. Broken. But alive. Any surviving U.S. unit, final extraction attempt is now active." Her eyes widened slightly. Final attempt. That meant one thing. This was the last chance. The wounded man reached the top ledge. "Captain, I made it." Maya looked up at him for a fraction of a second. Then back toward the canyon entrance. Enemy shadows closing in. Drones overhead. No ammo left in the chamber. And nowhere left to run. She exhaled slowly. And for the first time, she made a decision not based on survival, but on finishing. "Go," she said softly to the man. "Don't look back." Then she turned toward the canyon entrance again, and raised her empty rifle anyway. Because sometimes, standing your ground is the only way to survive long enough for rescue to arrive. And above her, the sky started to change. Helicopter rotors. Distant, but real. The canyon didn't feel like a battlefield anymore. It felt like a closing fist. Captain Maya Collins stood alone at its center, dust still hanging in the air from the grenade blast. Her ears were ringing, vision slightly blurred, and every muscle in her body was screaming for rest. But there was no room for any of that. Above her, the drones circled like metal vultures. Below her, enemy footsteps tightened the net. And somewhere far in the distance, a sound she almost didn't believe. Rotors. Helicopter rotors. Maya slowly raised her head. "Please be real," she whispered. The radio in her vest crackled again, stronger this time. "Eagle 1 inbound, marking survivor signal, hold your position." Her heartbeat spiked. It was real. Extraction was real. But so was the enemy. Because the moment that signal went live, everything changed. Outside the canyon, extraction confirmed, a voice shouted in broken English. "Bring her down before the bird arrives." The enemy stopped searching. They started rushing. Maya didn't wait. She moved. Not backward. Forward. Straight toward the canyon entrance. Because waiting meant being surrounded. And she was done waiting. She grabbed the wounded man's dropped rifle from earlier, Barely any rounds left, but enough to matter. A shadow appeared at the canyon mouth. She fired instantly. One shot. Clean hit. The man dropped. Another rushed in. She fired again. Click. Empty. No time to think. She threw the rifle like a weapon and pulled her sidearm. 3 rounds left. 3 chances. She stepped out of the canyon, and the world exploded. Gunfire from multiple directions. Sand kicked into the air like storms. Laser sights cutting across rocks. She rolled immediately behind cover as bullets ripped through where she had been standing half a second earlier. Target visual, she's exposed. Maya didn't answer. She didn't have time for words anymore. She was running purely on instinct now. The helicopter sound grew louder. Closer. So close she could feel it in her chest. Above the canyon, a spotlight cut through the night sky. Bright. Wide. Searching. Then, it locked onto her position. Eagle 1, we have visual, we see her. Maya looked up for half a second. Hope hit her like electricity. But the enemy didn't stop. They surged forward in a final push, desperate, aggressive, reckless. They knew what was coming. And they knew they had seconds left. Take her down now, someone screamed. Maya fired her last 3 rounds. 1 enemy dropped. 2nd staggered. 3rd kept coming. Click. Empty. Her sidearm was done. Silence for half a heartbeat. Then, she stood up fully. No weapon. No cover. Just her. And the battlefield. For a moment, everything slowed. Bullets still flew. Drones still hovered. But she saw it clearly now. The helicopter descending beyond the ridge. The rope lowering through the spotlight. The extraction team ready. But the path. Blocked. Completely blocked by enemy forces pushing in. Maya exhaled slowly. This is it, she whispered. But she didn't feel fear anymore. She felt clarity. She reached into her vest, pulled out a smoke marker, and activated it. Green smoke burst into the air instantly, marking her position. Marking survivor, the pilot shouted. Covering fire incoming. From above, the helicopter opened fire. Heavy suppression rounds tore across the canyon entrance, forcing enemies back instantly. Sand and rock exploded under the assault. Maya used that moment. She ran. Full speed. Straight toward the rope dropping from the helicopter. Bullets followed her. One hit the ground inches behind her heel. Another zipped past her shoulder. But she didn't slow down. Because slowing down meant dying. She jumped. Reached the rope. Grabbed it. But a sudden force hit her side. She stumbled. Almost lost grip. An enemy soldier had lunged at her from the smoke. He grabbed her arm, trying to pull her down. For a split second, everything balanced on one moment. Fall or fight. Maya turned her head slowly, looked him in the eyes. No fear, no hesitation, just exhaustion and resolve. Then she slammed her elbow into his face. Once, twice, his grip loosened, and she kicked him away as the helicopter rope lifted slightly. But more enemies were closing in. Geo, 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 the pilot shouted. Maya tightened her grip on the rope. And then, she let go of the ground. The canyon dropped beneath her. Gunfire faded upward. Smoke swallowed everything below. The helicopter rose fast into the night sky. Wind whipping across her face. Her arms burned from the strain of holding on. But she didn't care, because for the first time in days, she was leaving the ground that tried to kill her. Below, the battlefield shrank. Drones still hovered, but they were losing control of the situation. Enemy forces scattered under air support fire. And the canyon, the same place that almost became her grave, was now just smoke and sand. Inside the helicopter, Maya finally pulled herself in. She collapsed onto the floor for a second, breathing hard, hands shaking slightly. A medic rushed toward her. "You're safe now," he said quickly. "You're safe." But Maya didn't respond immediately. She just looked out of the open door, at the burning desert below, at the chaos fading behind her, at the mission that went wrong but didn't end her. Then slowly, she sat upright, not broken, not defeated, just changed, because something had shifted inside her out there. She wasn't the same soldier who entered that convoy. She wasn't the one who got ambushed. She was the one who walked through it anyway. The helicopter climbed higher. Radio chatter filled the cabin. Extraction complete, survivor secured. Maya closed her eyes for a second. Just one. Not rest. Not peace. Just acknowledgement. Then she opened them again and whispered to herself, "They left me behind." A pause. "But I still came back."